Don't focus on the screen. Instead, listen to my voice. If you feel comfortable to close your eyes, do so. You can rest your head on your hands, lie down, whatever feels comfortable and whatever allows you to focus on listening rather than seeing. I've written a guided tour for you. Before I start the description, I'll explain why I am interested in doing this. Audio is a format that we can use to feel connected when we are apart. It is a format that Teresa used to guide us through the streets of Prague even when we weren't there. It is a format I'm interested in using when you all virtually visit us in Nottingham next year, to bring some of the sensations of my city directly to you in yours. An audio description can also be a way to increase accessibility. I'm not experienced in access work, so this is an experiment, a trial run, an artist having a go. I'm also interested in how audio can be a tool for discussing and exploring difficult topics. Newstead is a building with a sinister history, charged with and haunted by racialized, classed, and gendered suffering.
To think imaginatively using new ideas instead of traditional or expected ideas. The act of visualizing something or someone equals forming a picture of it in your mind. The fact of many different types of things or people being included in something. One of a group of people who work together to give attention to someone or something in order to hear him, her, or it. If something is authentic, it is real, true. 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 If something is authentic, it is real, true.
This week, in a way, one of the questions that we had during this week was a bit like the idea of practice. Practice is a buzzword. It can be used for many things. It can be also generate noise at some point, and then at some point it's not meaningless, and it just doesn't make sense anymore, the word. I like that approach. I like that things become too much, too loaded, because then they become multiple also. So I'm not afraid of using a lot of times a word, because then the word becomes what I want it to be as well. And it doesn't become that sacred thing.
Immobility and interruption is the name of the practice. This practice aims to contribute, to resonate with this collective trauma, this recent trauma that was the murder of George Floyd by the policeman named Derek Chauvin in US. This was a pandemic episode. So one thing that I try to put inside my practice are the fact of be contemporary.
If intimacy is a movement, for me, this project would be about intimacy. And a lot of the things that we've done with Anna in the past few months since the lockdown, for me, have been around this intimacy and about, how do you touch when you cannot touch? How can you communicate when you cannot see the person in front of you, or you don't have physically the person in front of you?
This was always present in Anna's research since the beginning. Intimacy, touch. I think maybe the way of doing has changed, but the way, I mean, the line still there. I mean, is I can see we are continuing with this work that she started last week, with the intimacy, with care, with all this kind of movements and gestures that are really important for her job. And we are seeing this time, but with the difference that all this stuff about cleaning and individual things. So how to create something together, how to see the collective when we need to be each person in a different place. So
Masako conceived and developed an initiative called Diary of a Move, which is an idea and started to become a process for all of us. Masako worked closely to some members of our staff that felt immediately involved, and somehow that brought a new way of sharing responsibility, sharing power, sharing commitment, engagement, and sharing passion. So I want to connect to what Marc Olive addressed to us today, and that in a small way or form trace the beginning of a new movement within the organization. Diary of a Move has become a very meaningful experience for many citizens that were invited by Masako to keep a diary during the lockdown time, and to, as you know, to register movements in a very open and creative way.
Movement is also for me to create the Czech team or the team, because there I feel that we also try to give the space to the horizontal relations, and there I feel really very good about that, and I'm really happy that I can work with the people that in the Czech team.
As we had to change our idea to online workshop in Prague, Market already mentioned that it doesn't change direction. It just maybe help us to be more focused to our topics and to our research, what we were inspired by.
Because museums in Czech Republic are, I think, or this was the topic of my thesis as well, they are kind of stiff, and I think that we need to change it a little bit, and this connection with other artistic perception of movement and dance, not just the visual art we are kind of used to looking at, that this is very important. That the change, even though I feel like the participation from my colleagues could be bigger, I feel like even the fact that our gallery is participating in Dancing Museum is really important.
Projects, also other projects, they require physical displacement because you move from your own office or your own studio to another place. And I have come to realize that this physical displacement for me is also practice. It is a practice of sharpening my mind. It is that movement, that displacement of the body that sets my mind in motion and brings me to focus.
When we're considering movement, what this really brings up in me is the movement of the museum, because we have moved out of our building. We do not have a building right now. And I think the building that museums have sort of inherently make them more static than the situation that we are in right now. and we're really trying to move into that city. And Ingrid has been doing that physically by visiting the different museums that we have collections shown. So I thought that was really interesting. And with every movement that we make, I keep this project in mind to see where it could go. So if we're heading to a different neighborhood, how could this movement be combined?
Or that maybe early on in our space, we were thinking about the larger institutions, about how you create change, how you create possibility for dance and choreography in spaces that have huge resource, potentially have huge space and occupy lots of attention in the city, to one now where through this project and in others that have come about since, we're starting to really understand the need for the diversity of approach of different spaces, how it's important to acknowledge and bring together many more spaces and individuals and knowledges into a conversation.
I used to do this walk with Kim, and one day we stopped in this bench to talk about Ursula K. Le Guin. And now, because of that sensation, every time I pass in this bench, I imagine myself reading one book of Ursula K. Le Guin. I'm not sure which one. In this bench, under this tree.
Because I think my role doesn't change from any other project I approach, or it does not detach from the principle I usually pursue, if you say that. So I think it's been and it is still about shaping, modulating, to choose and not to choose to be a filter.
Like, I definitely want to change things. Like, that's kind of my permanent state of being. And I think it's sort of beside the point to like pretend otherwise, I suppose. But I think that's true of a lot of people. And I don't think change happens with like a one-directional push. In fact, pushing in one direction solidifies, that thing you're pushing against, and solidifies it against, your attempted force. That's sort of like.
It strikes me that we are describing different ways of producing knowledge, proper to our context and proper to our interests, and shaped and formed in the way according to the necessities of those things. But we are, all six of us are busy producing knowledge that then hopefully can be part of a larger change of direction or whatever the change might be needed in wherever we're at. But we're describing different ways of producing knowledge rather than necessarily producing artworks. This is indeed the first project I think I've been invited into as an artist where I haven't been asked to make an artwork. I can, it's not excluded, but it is not a commission. So that makes me think that my contribution in this project maybe has more to do with how to be a good colleague than how to make a good artwork. And I think this is an amazing opportunity to explore.
It's a research project, so I suppose it's been like working out what that means. And I think practically speaking, for me, that's meant that I've been invited to be sitting around the table in meetings, in conversations with people who work in organizations. And the invitation has been really clear or that's been the kind of biggest invitation for me, is like to be invited to look at a museum or an organization from an organizational position, which has been really interesting.
In the beginning of the project, I was walking in a circle, and I didn't know how to get out of the circle. And then when we had the workshop in Prague, suddenly I find a way how to get from the circle. So I went somewhere else, and I felt like there is a clear direction. And after that, I stuck on one spot.
And where is that one spot now?
It's here in my room. No, I'm joking.
I do believe that the question perhaps was asking for a little choreography demonstration, but I'm going to let you off the hook.
This chapel is one of my favorite spots in the museum. In here, I find a feeling of shelter. And I like that feeling of shelter because it makes me think of the possibility of museums as shelter, as places where to cover oneself. And that covering could go to many directions, to many needs. I find the idea of giving shelter quite inspiring.
Portrait of a young girl, woman encircled by a flight of birds in the night. Cattle and peasant in the moonlight, His Majesty the King, Her Majesty the Queen, His Highness the Prince. Painting The White Glove, painting 1925, painting 1927. Untitled. Painting 1933. Untitled drawing collage.
And education for us is a structural component of our thinking, dance, and what we do in the theater at the end. We work like 4 main concepts, I can say. We work around education, about performing, about 4 concepts. Can be exhibition, education, creation and process, and reflection and theory. I think we have these 4 concepts, and we try to, and in the center of these 4 ideas is the mediation we do. The mediation and dissemination. I think this is in the center and around it. I think we have these 4 concepts, and around we work as a mediation, as like a bridge to our territory all the time, in a constant thinking on how we can develop our audiences.
In relation to the artistic residencies at the dance house, for instance, we invite the artists to connect to the communities by offering workshops who are free of charge and open to everyone. So we invite the artists to connect to both professional dancers and teachers, dance teachers that live in the area, but also to non-professionals, so to adapt their workshop to many different levels of expertise in relation to dance. We also invite them to join the Dancewell classes. Dancewell is an artistic practice developed for people who are living with Parkinson's, and the classes take place inside the museum.
Society's polarization, divisiveness that we're struggling with all over the world today, and see the museum's ability to function as a glue, binding society together, binding people together. One way to do that is to avoid this excluding of great audience segments, which is what national museums have been struggling with so far, is that it's just for the white middle class. We can't continue like that anymore. So we're using all of the methods and languages that we have access to, amongst other things, dance and music, which is so universal. It's so universal. So
for us, it's like there are like two systems, and we try to work like putting these two systems together, like in the same level, to generate a new context that is in the middle of the artistic field or educational field. To do that, we have this concept of process. At the end, we are also a theater, and we do exhibition, and we would like to try to work inside education. Also, can we work with an artist? Therefore, the concept from process to exhibition. Sometimes more our programs are developed inside the school, no outside the school, inside the school, because we put the artists to work in the curriculum of the school there, to develop a whole process of a new, can be looking for a result, can be a performance, can be another thing, but to work with the kids, like in the same way he will work outside the school.
We need to be more diverse, and we need to understand that our audiences are more diverse and that we need to create access for more people. But on the other hand, that also means that we as institutions have to change, and that's something that we discovered, that we have a long way to go there. So we try and take action to become more diverse in our staff, and also to make our staff more aware of us, more aware of what people with different abilities need, what people with a different cultural background need to feel welcome, to feel part of a team, or a user, visitor. It's not only outside the institutions, also inside. So that's the only thing.
As you will see, the space, it's a multi-dynamic space. We can dispose the space as we wish, and also as the artist needs. This is one of the things that we think it's really beautiful about the space of Mercat de Sures.
The nice thing of this place is that the technician can work, and the artist and everybody can work with daylight.
They also need to be pointed at, and that idea of inside and outside, which doors are open, is for who are we open them, for how long. This is still something that I'm quite curious with. And also going back to something I said yesterday, how we create structures so people can come back. Also in their absence, also in their disappearance as well. And maybe that's it.